Hello and welcome to From the Be All End, the Burnley podcast. This is the debrief for, get this, Blackburn Rovers 0, Burnley 1. The run continues. Nearly a full pod squad. No Simon Evans today. But with me, Andrew Greaves, I've got Justin Connolly, Paul Woodhouse and Chris Borden. Burnley extending their lead, if you will, or their kind of hoodoo over our nearest rivals to 15 years, and our record now is exactly the same as that record they always bang on about over 34 years. But yeah, a Zian Fleming header from an inch-perfect Bashir Humphreys cross. The difference, and the only difference in terms of quality, I think, in an attacking sense. But yeah, the Clarets reigning supreme in East Lancashire. Chris, we were a bit nervy going into it, weren't we? I think as a team, as a podcast, and it never really looked like being any other result than avoiding defeat, did it? I mean, there's that one bit of quality from Fleming, but they never looked like taking advantage, did they?
No, I think everyone, if you spoke to both persuasions, I think a lot of people thought it'd be a 0-0. But as we keep saying every week, if we score, we'll win. The defence is nigh on impregnable.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. It's the organisation. I mean, again, you look at the goal that Gay scored from Campbell's pullback, where Burnley had stopped because the defensive line just stepped up, all as one, like clockwork, magnificent, and they weren't remotely concerned. And that was the way. CJ, the worry was you're looking at. I mean, Gay, he's not blessed with silky touch, is he? Shall we say? But he's a handful in the air, and he won a few sort of like early challenges, and you never know. A couple of bits and pieces might drop in their favour. But you look at the size of CJ Egan-Riley. And obviously, Steve's got the lot. He's pace. He can win stuff in the air. But I can't recall a centre half of Egan-Riley's stature having such a dominant game aerially and in terms of. I think he won every duel from one of the stats sort of pages I saw, and it's staggering. You throw in his reading of the game, and he's making blocks and these raking crossfield passes. He was absolutely fabulous, and it's got to the stage now. We've got this kid who we all sort of like. He came in earlier in this season, and good grief, is that all we've got left in the squad? My word, we better sign him on a contract swift. It's. Lee Carsley was there yesterday, gone back to his role as England under-21 boss. And if he's, Egan-Riley, he's 22, but he qualifies. He was his eligible age at the time of the current campaign. And if you're Lee Carsley, you're thinking, I'll have some of that. Bashir Humphreys is part of it. Trafford's in and around it as well. If he's not part of he's almost like the fourth choice now as goalkeeper, isn't it, for the full squad? It's you can pick three out of the back five essentially if you lead Cardiff. Egan-Riley was sensational, and that's not to do Steve down, who was every bit as good. But I think we expect that from him. He's just class.
Yeah. And Woody, I noticed on Up the Clarets quite a few 10 out of 10s, which are a bit rare from a player rating point of view. A couple of players got it, but Egan-Riley, a lot of 10 out of 10s from, from some experienced campaigners on that particular message board who've, seen their fair share of, brilliant centre halves. And I think Chris touched upon it in the last podcast when we were talking about, where does this back line individually sit with some of the others? And, we've talked about Egan-Riley quite a bit, but Chris mentioned briefly there, the range of passing, the crossfield balls, had the commentators certainly in this country. I think the main commentator referred to an at times passing masterclass from CJ Egan-Riley 3 or 4 times at the break and again at the final whistle. I think Bashir Humphries ended up getting the man of the match on Sky over here because of for the cross. But Egan-Riley really looks to be he's not just a central defender, is he? He's that kind of person we've perhaps missed in terms of distribution out from the back and trying to get beyond opposition. And that really is something we'd struggle to replace if we were to lose him, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it makes you wonder why it took so long to get him into the side. It's quite a gem we accidentally uncovered, isn't it? Because he probably, if everybody had been fit, we've said it before, that he wouldn't have got in this side. And now you're thinking, bloody hell, is he our first 100 million defender? He was that good yesterday. It's really not heaping too much praise on the lad, because his range of passing wasn't there at the beginning of the season, and he's turned into Taylor Harwood-Bellis. His reading of the game, because there was another stat as well that between him and Steve, they've only conceded 6 all season when they've played together. Now that's some bloody partnership. And I was watching yesterday. I was seeing, because it's very rare do you see people just oofing balls into the box like bastards did yesterday. And all you ever saw was this lad about a stature a foot above everybody else, doing a Virgil van Dijk and just heading everything out of play. And I'm thinking, is that LeBron? No, it was CJ Egan-Riley. And basically yesterday, he kind of had it all. His reading of the game, his passing range, and then at the death when we were under the cosh, he wasn't just getting his head on everything. He was like clearing 20-yard headers nearly every single time. He was absolutely immense yesterday. And he's an infinitely better player than we've given him credit for before this season. And he's a superb centre-half. He really is. He really has got a lot, apart from, obviously, pace. He may get found out when we finally go up. But yeah, you cannot complain, because I was surprised that Humphries got man of the match, even though that was an exquisite ball for the goal. CJ was exquisite yesterday. He was genuinely good.
Yeah, and just in the cross from Humphries is absolutely superb. It's a superb header from Fleming. It's not quite a carbon copy of the Sheffield United goal in the way it came about, but I think Humphries had said that he'd been spending a lot of time on his crossing in training. We've talked about how do we become more creative, how do we get more balls into the box and get it into the mixer. Again, it almost feels like we're just unpicking slight cheat codes every now and again, or we're stumbling up on a system, and that shows the kind of, I guess, the work that the staff are doing, because we questioned at the start of the season, what the bloody hell are they working on every week when we weren't creating? And look, it's one goal and we weren't great going forward necessarily, but there's little pockets of positives you can find in every performance that clearly looks at, right, this is what they've been working on this week, isn't there?
Yeah, well, I mean, sometimes we come against, more often than not this season, we're coming up against sides who are very defensive against us because they're afraid of us. That's the bottom line, isn't it? So when like we've said before, we can have loads and loads of possession, just fail to unpick these defenses because that's all really they're focused on. That was a moment of like genuine quality, wasn't it? The interview I saw with Bashir Humphries suggested that not only had he been working on those crosses, but he'd been working on them with Fleming as well. Yeah. To the point where he didn't need to look. He just put it in the area where he knows that Fleming's going to be, and we all saw the result, didn't we? So yeah, I think little moments like that show you that we have got that sort of potential to unlock teams, and maybe that's going to improve over the course of the season. I think it was a really scrappy game, wasn't it? There wasn't a lot of quality in it in terms of forward play from either side, really. And it's like Chris says, if we score, If we can just, all we need to do is produce one moment of quality like that. I mean, don't forget. I mean, I know I wasn't particularly impressed by the way Rovers approached that game. I thought they were absolutely horrible to watch. Dark arts, and the referee didn't really get on top of it. But they are, challenging for a playoff place, aren't they? So they're one of the better sides in the division. To my eyes, at least, we were considerably better than them. There was no complaints that we won that game. We were better in all elements. But sometimes when you play against, sides like that, you just have to produce one moment of magic, and that's 3 points in the bag. I don't care if it was another sort of aimless, passive sort of performance that didn't really produce much going forward. Going there and getting a win. The most important thing is it keeps us in touch at the top. I mean, the record against them, it was never really in any danger. What I was thinking was we need to take 3 points from this, because it's going to be 3 points that's important when it comes to those final places come May time.
Yeah, and Chris, I mean, last season obviously we were setting up to with no real defensive solidity and anything like that. Somebody posed a question, I think it was on either Facebook or Twitter, about would this style of play, so that ability to grind out results or get into games where there's perhaps one moment of quality and you make sure you're taking that moment of quality because you've got a stability at the back and that solid foundations. Do you think that, and again, we're probably going to get his bingo tick in a second when you start talking, do you think that is the foundations that we will need? It's not necessarily about, we've talked a lot about, well, this side will never compete in the Premier League, we'll have to go out and make loads more signings, etc., etc. But is there now a bit of a turning point where you go, actually, that defensive record, where everybody knows exactly what they have to do, does that give you a better chance, hypothetically, if we go up and we don't do open heart surgery again on this squad, do you think?
Well, the one thing, so you've got a level of understanding and organisation, and you've got youth. You like to think that they're only going to get better. Humphreys is going to get better. Steve, if he stays around, if he isn't poached by, Egan-Riley, if he stays, Burnley will be compensated either way because he's under 24. Roberts again, if he stays, but if not, they've brought in Son. Who sounds to me like a really exciting prospect in terms of his sort of goal creating and goal scoring from right back, and he can play centre mid as well. Sounds a really good pick there. It's you got to look at it. You look at us last year. You look at the way Southampton are going about things, and there's a balance to be had, isn't there? Now, again, I will mention his name, but it's more in line of, you're looking at what Sean's currently doing at Everton, and he's going to be lucky to see it out to the end of the season, is he, at the moment, the way things are going there, because they're showing no attacking intent whatsoever.
No.
And if you do concede, it's game over. It's like a lot of games under Steve Cotterill with Burnley, you sort of felt like, if we go to like a Bramall Lane or somewhere like that, try and keep it tight, and then you concede. And then what's the solution then? Because you're not going to score. It's so many of those days where all these away, even understand to some extent. If you lined up in a 4-5-1 away and you went behind, you think, we're in for a long afternoon here, and you have to have that attacking intent. Now maybe that how many Premier League sides are going to sit in against Burnley if Burnley are to be promoted? Probably not many. So that may be playing to your hands a little bit. But you will be. You're tested to the extreme. We could talk about the quality of the Premier League. Is it better, than it has been? That game this afternoon, the United-Liverpool game, was how Premier League football should be. Proper rivalry, million miles an hour. Both teams going full tilt to try and win it. It's you get tested to the extreme in the Premier League, and there would be an awful lot of surgery required, I think, if Burnley were to be promoted. But there's something to build on. That's like there was 2 years ago before it was ripped up. You know, lunacy. Again, if Burnley were to go up with this squad and tweak it, and you get behind that, because you know these lads they're in credit. They'll have had a promotion, and you know they're popular with the supporters. And if they fail, they fail, because probably to a man everyone thinks they're not quite good enough to survive at this moment in time. But you know, if you don't bring in a load of new faces that nobody's got any affiliation with or any love for and get relegated, then that's where the sort of fun and games started with Vincent, isn't it? But there's an awful lot to build on. That defensive record, you cannot praise that enough. We're talking this is sort of as good as anything in football history. You know, we're not talking championship history. We're talking the entirety of the English Football League. You know, it's ridiculous. You know, only that Chelsea side that Mourinho had that was, well, again, you know, how many 1-0s did Chelsea have? You knew as soon as Chelsea scored under Mourinho in that first spell, they'd won the game. Job done. And to be even close to that defensive unit is remarkable.
Yeah, and Woody, just a quick look at the league table. I mean, Leeds United had a bit of a roller coaster game yesterday. I think they were 1-0 down, 3-1 up, drew 3 apiece. Sit top on 53, a better goal difference, 29 goal difference. Burnley in second on goal difference, 52 points, 22 goals, 22 goal difference. Sheffield United 19 is their goal difference for the Blades, also on 52. Sunderland, who've won this afternoon 1-0 on 50 points, and then there's a 9-point gap back to 5th, with Middlesbrough on 41 points, and then Rovers quite a way behind on 39 points, and then, you know, etc. We've often talked about get to January, be in the mix. We are right in the mix, aren't we? We are right in the mix when you think about, you know, Leeds have still got to come to Turf Moor. That's coming up, I think, in the next few weeks. You know, being in the position we're in, should be quite attractive if we are going to make any moves in the January transfer window. And, you know, the other thing that I think will speak volumes, and I think it may have been mentioned on our WhatsApp group, is what most new players or players whose agents are looking for moves for players think when they see the celebrations after the game yesterday with the new lads. Sarmiento, who's only on loan, giving it the big licks. Fleming with the shirt on the corner. If you're a fringe player at a Premier League club, you know, let's call him Ferguson, you know, you're looking at that surely going, I want a part of that. You know, there's a side second in the league. They've got to play the league leaders at home, which means as long as you get a win against Leeds and then mirror their results, you finish above them. That's got to be, you know, an opportunity for us in the next kind of 2 or 3 weeks as the transfer window's open to add those little bits that we keep saying we need, isn't it?
Yeah, I think we are more in terms of fine-tuning and tweaking and adding pieces to improve. Because if you look at the relative Christmas periods, I think we've probably come out of it the better of the top 4. You know, you've got, if you look at the reaction to Melia yesterday, that thing for Hull's equaliser right at the death that he's flapped at, and they've all had a go at him. You know, that's a problem. If you're having a go and giving your keeper shit, that's a problem. Sheffield United are in a little bit of trouble. You know, Sunderland have just about kept themselves in touch. And even though we've had Hannibal sent off, we've come through not just the Christmas period, but a very tricky Christmas period, considering who we've had to play. And we've come out of it on top and beaten bastards at their place. And that is momentum. And, you know, we are where we are, and we'll get who we'll get. And players are going to look at this, like you say, and think, yeah, I'll have a piece of that. Why the devil not? And it's a lot more attractive when you've just gone through that as a Christmas period, you know, than other players falling out with each other and needing other reinforcements as per Sheffield United. We're in a very good position. And why wouldn't you want to come to Burnley and get promoted?
Yeah, definitely. And just on those celebrations, I know we were having there was a slight discussion on the WhatsApp group before we started recording, and Simon wasn't keen on the. It's not the reason he's not on the podcast, by the way, but he wasn't keen on what he saw as the over celebrating. I mean, the club have got plenty of social media assets to use that horrible phrase that people use when talking about social media, to use the Fleming with the corner flag and Barnesy and Jay putting the horse's head on and things like that. What do you make of the whole kind of, surely if there's one day you can celebrate in front of your fans, it's Rovers away at Ewood, isn't it?
I absolutely loved every second of it. And if anything, they didn't go far enough. I mean, like you say, if you can't celebrate doing that there, then where can you do it? I mean, all right, we've not won the league. We've not won a trophy. We've not, but it's the fiercest rivalry in English football. And we've gone to their place, completely outclassed them, scored a magnificent goal. And what it shows, I think, is that togetherness of the squad that Parker's always talking about. They're not, that defensive record is not just built on that back five. It's built on the entire team working together towards one goal, and experiencing moments like that together are the moments that sort of galvanizes that sense of togetherness for the rest of the season. So, I've got absolutely no problem with that whatsoever. I love it.
And Chris, I imagine you're of the very. I imagine all four of us are of the very same opinion that perhaps it didn't go far enough. We perhaps but it was I mean, I've been critical of perhaps off podcast of Connor Roberts. I've never known what to make of Connor Roberts in terms of it, but there's a great video of him literally just like he's just slapping the badge and he's pumping people up at the final whistle. Even his pre-match interview, he said, "I won the league at Ewood Park," and not many people can say that. And it's them
called it Deadwood,
yeah, on one of the interviews, yeah. It's like and I saw all of the social media from the players and the coaches. I think the set piece coach, much maligned set piece coach, said, "You don't play derby games, you win them," and you just think that kind of all of the kind of confidence that the Rovers fans had going in it, bookmark it, we're going to smash them on the 4th of January, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And it all just comes crumbling down because that togetherness that Justin mentioned is a huge part of these games, isn't it? It's a huge part of understanding what these games mean.
Well, you ice in the brain and fire in the heart, isn't it? That's what you need. I think they tried. I think they tried a couple of times recently to sort of intimidate us, bully us physically, and they can't do that. And we've got better footballers. So if you can match that, your football should come out on top in the end. I mean, the amount I lost count of Burnley players that got thrown into advertising hoardings yesterday, and that was allowed. And they're supposed to be clamping down on shirt pulls this year. But, Cullen literally has his ripped off his back. Fleming has his, clear as day, you can see a Clarets blue jersey getting dragged, and the referee gives a free kick the other way when it's a penalty and a red card, second yellow. And then Sky had the temerity to ask John Eustace after go, well, what about the Josh Laurent second yellow? In fact, he could have got a second yellow for that, but hang on a minute, it's a penalty, not a mention of it, and it's. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do. There's for the youth of the side. Again, in that back four in particular, I loved what Scott Parker was saying after the game. The places that they're having to go to dig these results out. The character and mentality to refuse to be bowed, and it is. We can all laugh and Rovers fans. Oh, Burnley fans were quiet, weren't they? And Burnley fans would be like, well, Rovers fans didn't make much atmosphere. It's intimidating either way. If we're in their stadium and when they're in ours, it can't be pleasant. So Sammy Smodics was talking. I saw a piece during the week, obviously from a few months ago, and he said it was just horrible. Hated it, and that's what you want. But but for those young lads to be able to stand up in the heat of all that is remarkable, and that'll only galvanise them again. I take my hat off to that. Fabulous. Another thing I was really pleased for was that all those Vol fans that came over from Holland, that they got to see one of the former players score the winner and celebrate with them with the corner flag as well. So they seem really chuffed about it. They look like they all had a trip to JD Sports together and bought out JD Sports with wall-to-wall black North Face gear on. So they'd had a good afternoon by the looks of things.
Absolutely. And Woody, I mean, we mentioned a back four, but the one thing that I was going to bring up here was James Trafford, right? We talk about pressure and we talk about that. Again, for the second or third game, I felt so much more confident when corners were coming into the box that he's coming through players and he's not wafting a hand at it like he perhaps was last season, if he was coming for them at all last season. He's coming from, the Luton goal that shouldn't have been a goal, I don't think happens this year with the confidence Trafford's got, because Trafford appears to have almost built this shield around himself when he's coming for balls. And there were times when I think he looks taller, and it's that kind of, as a goalkeeper, yes, your back four is a huge part of it, but he's really played his role as well, hasn't he? He perhaps isn't called upon very often, but he's made a couple of smart saves in recent games, and that confidence at set pieces is definitely coming through, isn't it?
That's the biggest difference. It really is. The fact that his decision making from when he's deciding to play the ball, holding the ball when it's at his feet, but also, like you say, making those decisions when there's crosses coming in. There's no flapping. He's punching at the right times. He's getting distance on his punches. He's catching things, and yes, that breeds confidence from your back four as well. And like you say, he doesn't necessarily have a lot to do, but he had quite a bit to do yesterday. That was a messy game for a goalkeeper, especially a goalkeeper such as Trafford, who's maybe not used to that kind of stuff week in, week out. And I thought he was as imperious as he has been and didn't necessarily put a foot wrong. And you can see the improvement in all the players. Everything that we say about they could do with a year in the Championship. Well, he's had half a season in the Championship, and he's becoming a very much a better keeper because of it. He hasn't carried on with the same kind of poor decisions and flapping and whatnot, and they've worked on him, and he's obviously responded to it, and he's gotten infinitely better. And it's the same throughout the side. And you can see, like we were saying about Bashir Humphries talking about staying behind and working with Fleming to put those balls across. It was obviously something he didn't come to the turf to play left back and having to overlap and put balls on Fleming's head. But they've worked on it, and obviously Trafford's working on it, and the centre halves have been working on shit, and they've all been working on shit, and it's obviously coming to fruition, and they understand what it is that they're supposed to be doing, and it's working terribly well. And you've got to give Parker and the squad a hell of a lot of credit for them being in this current position and the way that they're actually playing. And I'm very pleased with it. I think we're all very pleased with it. It could be a little bit easier on the eye every now and again, but fuck it.
Absolutely. Just in one thing that I think we've kind of brought up on the WhatsApp group again before is one thing I'd like Parker to work on is that fist pump, because it's a little bit. He's almost underarming it, isn't he? There's no real, you see Josh Laron and they're giving it that, and Vincent in the Champions. He's just, it maybe just Parker's. It feels very kind of like, flowery and very kind of like, it's almost just a bit of a table tennis wafted towards the Darwin end. And but it is good to see. I mean, he always, he always kind of tries to get out of having to do it, and the players push him forward. But it is good to see that, after a lot of negativity around him and his style of play, that actually on days like that, he is pushed to front and centre to celebrate and take the plaudits.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've been a little bit disappointed on this podcast about the style of play. And I think it was probably me that said it at least 3 months ago that we're not going to stay in contention if we carry on playing like this. And yet here we are after what, as Woody describes, a really difficult Christmas period, sitting nicely in second position, lots of confidence, lots of momentum, and we just keep doing that thing, don't we, where we don't concede a goal. If we nick one, we win. If we don't, we don't lose.
Mm.
And obviously that's down to Scott Parker, isn't it? We weren't doing that last season, were we? So what's changed is the manager. And I think with this group of players, he's probably just sort of seen, what he can and what he can't do with them. Obviously, bags of experience in getting teams out of this division. And he's done a fantastic job. It's all about the organisation. It's all about that sort of, cutting your cloth according to what you've got. We've got a little bit of quality, and that does show from time to time, but we've got that resilience and that togetherness that is obviously a big part of what Parker's trying to do. As for his fist pumps, I mean, the only thing I can think is he's acutely aware that he's wearing like a $4,000 jacket and he doesn't want to rip the seams on it.
It could well be that. I think he changed his jacket, did he not, yesterday? Did he have the? He might have. I'm trying to think. I'm sure in the pictures where he celebrated,
he just took it off. I think he just took his expensive jacket off.
Maybe jackets, he was two jackets. Yeah, maybe 2 jackets. Parker.
Maybe he's worried about the champagne. I don't know.
10 grand's worth of jacket over 2 different garments. Incredible. But Chris, I mean, we've got cup action coming up next, Reading. That is a chance for him to kind of perhaps test a couple of players. I know, it almost feels like the most underwhelming cup tie we could have been given away at Reading. I'm always a bit like that with the FA Cup. You obviously want to do well and things like that, but actually, is the focus on, right, we're going to use this to get players up to speed, perhaps get players who've not had minutes who we think are going to be important in the running, some game time. He's already talked about players perhaps going out, and I think Sambo's one of them that he's talked about. Perhaps he'll go out. How do you view what Scott Parker might do next weekend for the Reading game? Is it a chance to experiment? Is it a chance to further gel this team together and get them, perhaps against a lesser opposition, working on some of the stuff he knows he can bring back into the Championship?
It's a tough one, isn't it? Because I think, like I said, we've had this discussion before. I think as a fan base, what you give your right arm to win the FA Cup and to have a day like Wigan Athletic enjoyed 12 years ago, staggering. And but in all likelihood, when you're a Premier League side and Premier League survival is the be all and end all financially, but there's almost, it's that flip side that you as a Premier League side, you should have half a chance. If you can get lucky with a couple of draws and make it through a couple of rounds, and it might open up, blah, blah, blah. I think our eyes lit up, didn't they, when we played, you're on to Lincoln, the 5th round, and thinking, oof, hang on a minute, last 8, here we come. Maybe it's our year. We're due a run in the FA Cup. And that went pear-shaped. But I've got to be honest, as a Championship team, you're not going to win it. And I've been making wholesale changes. I don't know about Son's suspension, because apparently he's got a suspension hanging over him from the Danish Super League. I don't know if that's expired not after yesterday.
I think it was just yesterday.
Right.
We'll have to check that,
get him straight in, get him acclimatised, give Ladke a going goal. People like Worrell needs a game. Egan probably. Maybe Magic Mike.
Maybe that's what he's been waiting for. 3rd round tie away at some soulless stadium on North End of London.
More chance of Ali's Comet coming. It's no, but I'd shake it up. To my money, it's neither another. The one thing this year is we need to win promotion, and the old argument about does it give you a bit of momentum? I couldn't care less. If we get knocked out, it's a sad day whenever you get knocked out of the FA Cup. But I've got to be honest, my focus is on the Championship promotion race.
Yeah. Woody, would you agree with that? It's just in these kind of seasons, the FA Cup almost feels like a bit of a distraction. You don't mind going out. You get beat narrowly at home to a Premier League club. There's always that kind of getting knocked out away at a lower league club feels a bit, but it almost becomes a bit of a distraction, doesn't it, when you're laser focused on at the start of the season, the aim is not to win the FA Cup. The start of the season, the aim is we need to get promotion.
Yes, especially when you consider we've got Sunderland the week after and Leeds not too long after that. You don't suddenly want to pick up an injury or 2 or 3 or whatever, or any suspensions. And there are plenty of lads coming back on the grass, or they're not, who are more than capable of stepping in to these various shoes. Like we know Worrell, however Ekdal is, giving Barnes some minutes, getting certain people match fit for the rest of the season and seeing how they progress, and being able to kind of, formulate a second string of this style that we've been playing that we know has been successful. So yeah, I'd like Chris says, shake it up. You don't have to go. You don't have to be ridiculous, but see, get some more minutes, and the boys who need it. And, it's still only Reading, and they're still crap. And we've got more than enough, I would have thought, to see them no matter who we throw out there. So, but I wouldn't be going gung-ho or guns a-blazing to go and win a third round FA Cup tie at Reading, to be fair.
There you go. That feels like a really good place to finish, actually, in terms of for this. Woody, they're still rubbish. It's still Reading, and they're still rubbish. So, any Reading podcasters want Woody to give you a rundown of what the Burnley fans think of the Royals, get in touch with Mr. Woodhouse via social media, perhaps. But we'll be back later in the week with a fuller preview of that. We'll perhaps get some indication from Scott Parker's press conference, what he's thinking, and kind of look at the Clarets FA Cup tie against Reading a little bit later in the week. But until then, enjoy walking into work on a Monday morning if you've got any Rovers fans in your various offices and workplaces. Bragging rights are still ours. Bragging rights will probably still be ours for a long time yet. And just remember, up the Clarets.